Now on Christmas Day, guests are your biggest variable. They're the hardest things to control. So as a responsible dog owner, you need to make sure the day's set up to be as successful as possible. So pre-warn your guests. Say my dog's not great with this sort of thing. Give it time, give it space and ignore it. Stick a sign on your door, reminding people, reactive dog, please ignore it, or something like that, or be aware of the dog, or whatever you need to do to get your point across. If your dog's uncomfortable with guests coming round, they get excited, they get scared, this is going to be a huge problem considering all the other stresses we're dealing with. So there's two factors here. You have to deal with your dog and you have to deal with your guests. So set your dog up to succeed here. If your dog does struggle with guests, make sure they're out of the way when the guest comes into the house. Put them in a safe space, give them the chew, give them the licky mat, whatever they need to keep them distracted for the short term. If the dog's not too bad, make sure they sit back while you welcome your guests in and the dogs don't get involved in the greeting. If they can sit back and watch you greet people, they'll be much more comfortable when they come to get involved. So ensuring the dog's safe, calm, out the way, whatever it needs to be to deal with the situation, ensure that's in place first. The tricky part is your guests. Ideally, they just ignore your dog. They focus on you, don't look at the dog, don't try and touch the dog, don't try and talk to the dog, don't put any social pressure on the dog at all. That makes it easier for the dog. But guests being guests, who knows what they're going to do. So if you can, get them seated, get them calm as quick as possible. Have your big excitable hellos, which dogs will struggle with because normal hellos are much calmer than Christmas hellos. But then once they're all settled, then consider maybe bringing the dog in and introducing the dog. If you have to, on lead, so the dog can't do something daft. It can't get in the wrong position. And if the visitors get all excited, you can bring your dog behind you, send your dog to its safe space. But essentially, you don't want the guests and your dogs interacting until they're much more calm. Excitable situations generally lead to other reactions. So get your dog safe, and then try and get the guest on board to make it easy for your dog. Now when people do come in, what they'll generally try and do is make friends with your dog. People like to make friends with your dog, so they'll approach it, they'll try and cuddle it. They might tell you that they're great with dogs, and they might be great with dogs, but it doesn't mean your dog's going to be great with them. And the more pressure you allow them to put on your dog, the bigger the chance of an incident. So people will generally go straight up to your dog and try and fuss it, right over its head, grab its ears and stuff, which for an average dog, they don't mind too much. But your nervous dog might interpret that as, you're starting trouble with me. And that's when you might get snapped. If your dog's got a bed in the corner of the room and somebody approaches the dog to go and say hello to it, they've already cornered that dog. And cornering an animal is a really bad idea because they've got no flight option. So the only option they've got left is fight. And that's generally where you get a reaction from. If we then ramp this up by having excitable people dressed in funny outfits, maybe Santa hats or big beards or something, carrying big bags of presents or boxes, these can all just add to the stress. Now, it's fine for people to want to make friends with your dog, but ultimately it's your dog and it's your responsibility. So if you don't think your dog can handle being approached, don't let people approach. It's not nice to tell people, leave my dog alone. So if you're not comfortable asking people to avoid your dog and don't look at your dog and that sort of thing, do the other option, which is make your dog feel safe. So if you don't want someone to approach your dog, call your dog back to you and have it behind you so they approach you, not your dog. So if you sit in a corner of a room, for instance, and have your dog sat next to you, whoever approaches you, not your dog. Now, if that's going to be too much hassle or too hard, or there's too many variations, there's too many people, there's too much stuff going on, remove your dog from the room. Put it in its safe place. You can't rely on your guests to do the right thing. Because ultimately it's Christmas, they don't want to follow the rules, they want to have fun. So they're bound to ignore them at some point. And even if they start well, after a few drinks, a few party games, a bit of food, a sugar rush, they're going to do something stupid with your dog. Or your dog might be in the wrong position. Imagine your dog's in the hallway and someone goes to the toilet and now they've cornered the dog without even realising it. That could be a problem. So there's lots of different aspects here, so you need to control them, be aware of them, and ultimately just make your dog feel comfortable. So deal with the guests if you can, and if you can't deal with the guests, make the dog feel safe. And just don't rely on people when they say, we'll do that, because they probably won't at some point. So if in doubt, put your dog to safety somewhere. A great tool to use when you're trying to manage guests around your tricky dog is breaks. If your dog's struggling with the build-up of people coming around and things happening, give it a break, put it in a different room, put it in a safe place for a while, maybe take it in the garden or a short walk maybe. But by giving it a break, it gives the dog a chance to relax, reset, and when you come back into that situation, we're starting with a calm dog, as opposed to letting the dog get more and more stressed and build up to the point where it has to overreact. So little breaks, little gaps in the day, they can just help dogs reset. It's just like when they're play fighting. They'll have little play pauses just to make sure the play doesn't get too over the top. So use the same technique in stressful situations. The dog will thank you for it. What if you're going to be a guest at somebody's house with a reactive dog? Well, you can still chip in and help make that day go well for everybody. So straight up, listen to the owner. If they say, don't do this, don't do that, ignore the dog, do it. Just make the day easy for everybody. Now, if they don't give you instructions and you're not sure and you know the dog's tricky, just ignore it. Pretend it's not there. Don't look at it. Don't give it eye contact. Don't try and touch it. Don't try and talk to it. Don't communicate to it at all. Don't put any social pressure on it. And if it comes up for a sneaky sniff, let it, but don't touch it. Let it get comfortable around you. You're not there to make friends with a dog on Christmas Day. So just leave it alone. And if you are seeing other people pestering the dog, call the person away. You don't have to specifically say, leave the dog alone. You say, oh, come over here a minute. And just give the dog the time and space it needs. Then if everybody's helping the dog get through the day, everybody else enjoys the day as well.